This is Varian Wrynn, known as the King of Stormwind from the Wrath expansion up until Legion. Over this 8-year period, he's become a favorite among the Alliance player base, which is for a good reason, seeing as he has played a leading role in important storylines such as the Battle for Undercity, the Siege of Orgrimmar, and notoriously the war against the Legion. What only few players know is that his story didn't actually start during the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, as he could be found within Azeroth during the earliest patches of the game's original release back in 2004 and 2005. This is the story of Varian's forgotten past. When World of Warcraft released in 2004, players who went to Stormwind Keep would not find Varian. Instead, they were met by his son, King Anduin, and the Alliance leader, Bolvar Fordragon. This is assuming players didn't visit in patch 1.4.1, as Bolvar wasn't actually in the game at this time. Instead, Archbishop Benedictus served as the leader of the Alliance, but that is another story entirely. Upon first seeing Anduin, players appropriately asked the question, why is the King of Stormwind so young? And when going and talking to Anduin himself, players got their first clue.
Hi there, have you heard any news of my father?
This wasn't much, but as players leveled and completed quests along the way, more information would become available. As players discovered and attacked the Defias Brotherhood's hideout, called the Dead Mines, they looted the letter, which started the quest chain that had the player complete a series of tasks in the war against the Defias Brotherhood. Upon completing the entirety of the quest chain, the player unlocked the quest called An Audience with the King, in which they are sent to report to King Varian in Stormwind Keep. When players went to turn in the quest, Varian, just like previously, wasn't there. Instead, players needed to speak to Lady Kitana Presta to claim their reward. And this is where they would get their first explanation as to why King Varian wasn't anywhere to be seen within Stormwind. Here, players were told that the king was on a diplomatic mission and that he'd be away for a while. As players gained a few more levels, a new questline became available by talking to an NPC called Thomas in the Stormwind Cathedral. The questline is called the Missing Diplomat, and in the first few introduction quests, players are sent around Stormwind speaking to NPCs. Here, they were finally told that a Stormwind diplomat was sent to Theramore to speak with Jaina Proudmoore before being abducted by the Defias Brotherhood. At the time, the main point of discussion among players was where all these quest NPCs could be found, and not about who the missing diplomat was, or if it had anything to do with the king's diplomatic mission. This is for good reason, because in the game's first few months, there was no real database to go from, and the data that was available was often unreliable. The next few quests in the questline focused on gathering information about the abduction of the diplomat. This part of the questline took place in Stormwind, Duskwood and Redlands, and it involved talking to various quest givers, the retrieval of Defias letters, and confrontations with undercover Defias members. After exposing and beating up one of these traitors, you would disclose that it wasn't just a diplomat that Defias had kidnapped, it was the king. The final part of the questline took the player to Theramore in the Doswell Homage zone, with the objective of finding and confronting the corrupt Alliance soldier who was responsible for the king's abduction. Interestingly, after starting this encounter, Alliance players would become PvP flagged because the soldier himself was an Alliance NPC. After subduing him, the player was told that the soldier would be questioned and to let Theramore find the king. The questline then suddenly ended with the leader of Theramore, Jaina Proudmoore, thanking the player and awarding them with a ring. Still, at this point, nobody had made the connection between the missing diplomat questline and King Varian, who was supposedly on a diplomatic mission. This does make sense, as during the questline, Varian was never called by name, instead being referred to as simply the king. While the quest abruptly ended here, some players who went out to explore the different areas of the game ended up finding their way into an underground prison on Alcaz Island, located off the coast of Doswell Homage. Getting there wasn't easy, as the island was packed with high-level elite guards and there was no quest related to the area. But surprisingly, when they made it there, they found Varian Wrynn, King of Stormwind, standing alone in a prison cell. Initially, players didn't know why he was there or what his purpose was, but this soon changed. As on patch 1.3.1, just short of 6 months after the game's release, Alcaz database user Accursed became the first to make the connection between King Varian and the missing diplomat questline that ended in Theramore just nearby. Over time, more and more players went to visit Varian in his cell, and so players theorized that he would be part of a questline in the future. This sadly never came to be, as on patch 1.9, a little less than 1 year since players first found him, he was removed from the game. Varian's removal happened when the island underwent a remake, preparing it for the AQ questline which it would be a part of. And this was the last players would hear of Varian, at least for a while. Around halfway through the Burning Crusade expansion, on patch 2.3, a few zones in the old world, including the Dustwater Marsh, received updates to their questing environment. Here, a new questline was added, one that had the players survey the Alcaz Island, where Varian could previously be found. After not finding anything, the questline ended in much the same manner of the missing diplomat, without any explanation as to what happened to Varian. While Varian himself was never mentioned in the second questline, it's obvious that he was the unknown prisoner that players were sent out looking for. And unlike what was the case with the missing diplomat, some players already knew what the objective of the questline was from the very beginning. Around a year after this, when the Wrath of the Lich King expansion released, Varian was added to the Stormwind Keep. And this is where the story of Varian that most players are familiar with began. The questlines were still available for players to complete, at least for a while. But with the release of the Cataclysm, most of the quests along with the story they told disappeared from the game.